Good morning. This is the Weber County Board of Commissioners meeting on the 3rd of August, 2021 at 10 o'clock. Seated to my right is Commissioner Scott Jenkins. Seated to my left is Commissioner Gage Froer. I'm Commissioner Harvey. We welcome you, those of you who have joined us in person, those of you who have joined us live online, and those of you who may join us some other time. Glad to have you here. This morning, our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Christy Bingham in the office, one of our office admins, and then our invocation will be given by Commissioner Scott Jenkins, and then our thought of the day will be given by Commissioner Gage Froer. Ms. Bingham?
Everyone please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Heavenly Fathers, we come before you this time at our commission meeting for Weber County. We give you thanks for the blessings that we receive individually and collectively. We're grateful for this great state we live in as well as this wonderful county. And as our parties and fairs approaches this next week, we pray that watch over and bless us, that no harm or acts will befall people there, and that we'll all have a good time. We pray that thy Spirit will attend us this day, that the things we say and do will be in accordance with thy holy mind and will. We're grateful for the opportunity we have of serving individually. We pray that bless and watch over us as commissioners. We ask for these things, Lord, and give you thanks, and do it in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I think that most people, unless they've been living in caves the last week and a half, understand that we have a very significant events happening in not only our country, but the world. It's called the Olympics, Tokyo Olympics 2020, which actually 2021 because we know why it's postponed a year. So I thought it'd be appropriate to give a little Olympic history to those listening and in the audience today. And I'm sure everybody knows that the Olympic Games actually started in ancient Greece. Started in the 8th century AD, went through the 4th century BC, held in Olympia, Greece. In 1896, the IOC was formed, and they moved the games to Athens, Greece, and that was the first original IOC organized games in 1896. And I'm sure that, Mr. Chair, you're aware that at that time there was 14 nations represented at that time, 241 athletes, and 43 events. Now, how you might compare that to today's world in Tokyo? Where do you think that might be, Mr. Chair?
They're significantly increased.
Increased, you're right. Well, I'll give you the numbers. So today we have over 200 countries in Tokyo, 11,500 plus athletes, and over 400 events and that would 400 events, basically 35 to 40 sports, and they have different categories of those. And as I was kind of doing some research, actually I heard on the radio, the USA now pays their athletes when they win gold, silver, or bronze medals, which I wasn't aware of. I didn't know that. Till yesterday. So if you take a gold medal, the USA pays you $37,500. For a silver, it's around $22,000, and then it goes down from there. Some countries do far better than that. I think Taiwan paid one of their athletes $1 million for a gold medal. So now, and when I grew up, the Olympics was always an amateur sport. There was no professional. In fact, until 1988, when the Canadians basically boycotted because of ice hockey, that's when the first NHL players, and Melissa will understand this, were allowed to compete, and that's because the Canadians said, hey, we're not going to send our amateur players to compete against the Soviets. Now, one of my favorite Olympic experiences, memories, still goes back to the USA beating Russia. I think all of us that are over maybe 50 remember that day. One of the greatest days in.
I remember.
Do you? Your mom probably told you about it when she read the nighttime stories.
That's right.
Anyway, great Olympic events, 1988. Winter Games were first started in Chamonix, France. And for those that have visited Chamonix, it's a great ski town, fantastic mountains right there in the Alps, and a great place to visit if you haven't been there. Personal history, I've got a little personal history with the Olympics. 1984, the Olympics were held in Los Angeles. And I actually, at that point in time, qualified to run the marathon trials. Unfortunately, it's one of the regrets. I never took them up on that invitation because I knew I wouldn't be in the top probably 100. But it was great to be invited to Olympic trials in 1984. In 2002, the boys and I actually participated in opening ceremonies in Salt Lake. We actually were out on the ice participating in those opening ceremonies. The boys did the closing ceremonies. A great time. A lot of practice went into those opening ceremonies. So, anyway, I'm kind of an Olympic fan. The 2024 Summer Olympics will be held in Paris. We only have to wait 3 years because, well, hopefully we won't have to wait longer than that. So, anyway, that's a little history. My thought for the Olympics today, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
You know, that is a good history. I remember that very well. I was at those opening games in Salt Lake, sitting in the stands, and those were wonderful times. Yeah, that's great experience.
I remember you, Commissioner Faure, before I got to know you, passing the torch. You were a torch runner, and you did it right up the street.
1996 for the Atlanta, yeah.
You had a lot of hair then.
I had hair back then.
A lot of them. But you were in pretty good shape then, too. I can see why you might qualify for the Olympics. That's really neat. That's super. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Appreciate all of you being here. Our agenda related to public comments. Our comments will be taken for items listed on the agenda. Just the items listed on the agenda. Are there any here in the audience that would like to comment, or any person online regarding items listed on the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on, Commissioners, to item F like Foxtrot, our consent items, which is number 1, a request for approval of warrants 4172 through and including 4193 and 460654 through and including 460800 and 107 through 111 in the amount of $1,502,075.61. Consent item 2 is a request for approval of purchase orders in the amount of $78,500.25. Item 3 is a request for approval of ACH payments to U.S. Bank in the amount of $149,059.26. Item 4 is a request for approval of new business licenses, and item 5 is a request from the Weber County Community Development Department for approval to a surplus an HP PhotoSmart 6520 color printer scanner. Item 6, a request for approval contracts by and between Weber County and the following individuals for the 2021 Weber County Fair, which is the Utah Youth Rodeo Association for a youth rodeo, and Nicole Fuller for the Fiesta 4-H Horse Show announcer. Item 7 is a request for approval of contracts by and between Weber County and the Chamber Orchestra Ogden for events being held at the Peary's Egyptian Theater on the following dates: September 25th, 2021, January 29th, 2022, and March 26th, 2022. And item 8 is a request for approval of a retirement agreement by and between Weber County and Adam Strader. Commissioners, that completes our consent items. Are there any questions pertaining to any of those things? We have Mr. Lynn Taylor from the Clerk Auditor's Office. He'd give us a little more detail with regards to the finances, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. We had 14 purchase orders totaling $79,000. The largest of these, 36% or $28,000, was for IT for a new HR software system. 15% or $12,000 to the transfer station for a compost screener and temporary staffing. 13% or $10,000 property management for pole barn concrete. We had 174 warrants totaling 1.5 million, and the largest of these were 59% or 884,000 for employee and retiree health insurance, 7% or 110,000 to the library for books and materials, software maintenance, building and equipment maintenance, and printing services, and 7% or 109,000 for the sheriff's warehouse.
Commissioners, does that explanation bring up any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the consent items.
I'd make a motion we approve consent items with a comment.
Okay?
It's interesting how much we spend to operate that jail. I was in a meeting with the sheriff yesterday, and he commented how many people we book a year, and it's well over 1,000 a month. Well, you know, 1,000 a month, you start dividing that into days and the time, and it takes a lot of time and effort to book these people and run that and feed them, and it's reflected when you go through these bills and see what the, you know, I think last year in our budget hearings, the sheriff was about half of our budget. And it's just quite an expense that our citizens bear, and I just wanted to comment on that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Great, I have a motion and a second. I'll place that motion for vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to item G like Gulf, our action items. There are only two today. The first one will be presented by Melissa Freegang. It is a request for approval of an interlocal agreement between Weber County and the Weber Morgan Health Department and Weber Human Services for operation of the Prosperity Center of Excellence. Ms. Freegang.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you. What you have in front of you is the interlocal agreement. The changes within it are in Section 2, and they're primarily changes that will reflect the moving from the administrative oversight from the Health Department to the Commission. That happened last July, but through the audit and all of the things that we've been doing, this is now the interlocal that needs to go forward from between you guys and then both advisory boards for both the Weber Morgan Health Department and Weber Human Services. And if it's okay, if you'll indulge me, I'd like to talk about successes over the last 2 years, just in a broad way, if that's okay with you.
Please.
Thank you. So highlights and successes. So in our intergenerational poverty work, we have raised over $1.1 million in grants to work with our families. We've worked with currently active and inactive over 200 individuals that have received our full services. Of those individuals, we've increased 75% of them have access now to mental health that didn't otherwise. So those are new services accessing both Weber Human Services and any mental health that they have access to. We've also saw 2 months ago our very first homeowner. So an individual who was a single parent with 4 children experiencing homelessness upon entry into our program, within 2 years becoming a homeowner, which is a really big deal. We've also assisted 2 families to acquire new cars to them to help their families access employment and nutritious foods, etc. 27% of our families that come to us are experiencing homelessness. So when you look at our case management ratios, those are really intensive services to make sure that those families don't fall back into homelessness. We've also, speaking of homelessness, helped all of our homeless service providers secure $3 million over the last 2 years in state, federal, and grants and emergency funding, which is pretty significant when you think of our providers. And the Center of Excellence has been able to do that, to work with them and to really advocate for them at the federal and state levels. We've also managed the entire COVID response and still managing it as the numbers are starting to increase. That included bi-weekly collaborative calls, liaisoning with the health department, as well as helping secure funding to respond to the needs of those experiencing homelessness and addressing COVID, including running the Q&I facility for a long time until it got transitioned into the Lantern House. So we also managed all of the outbreaks, which were 2 and pretty significant. So that's something that's certainly ongoing, but really important. We were able to give all of our agencies, in particular Lantern House, access to things like the Binax Now testing, and we've been able to work on vaccination clinics for the homeless, including those who are experiencing homelessness that don't access the shelters, so the unsheltered. And we've been assisting Commissioner Jenkins in running the WACOG Housing Panel, as well as helping to lead out on the Weber County Housing Affordability and Access Initiative. We've recently started to work through the Reentry Coalition and help the Sheriff's Office lead out on the Reentry Coalition, which is a community initiative, as well as starting to work on the systems. And so the goal there is to reduce recidivism. So when you have 15,000 bookings a year, as Sheriff Arbonne spoke to yesterday, that's an unduplicated number. So the number of individuals who, access or not access, are sentenced or booked, right? That 15,000 could be one person 20 times. And so what we want to do is decrease that so that we increase the capacity of the Sheriff's Office. And then lastly, we have been integrating prevention into all of our systems work that we're doing in the prevention science, as well as supporting our 5 CTCs that work on suicide prevention and opioid response. So thank you for indulging me and letting me just give some brief highlights.
Thank you, Ms. Freegang.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Scott Jenkins, this is in your portfolio. Would you have any comments pertaining to this?
I do have a question. Melissa, could you report to us the little gal that stood up here 2 years ago
Yeah.
and said that Salt Lake had sent them up here because they couldn't handle her?
Yep.
What is the end result 2 years later? What has happened with her?
Yeah, so she has 9 children. 2 are intellectually handicapped that are over the age of 18, so they're over the age of 20. And so it took us a little while to get her housed. It's really difficult to house a family of 9, given the amount that you have in vouchers and the cost, right, of a home it's that big. But she is housed. We have 2 other of her children. So her 2 older children who have intellectual disabilities are living with her. And we have helped them get supportive services through Voc Rehab so that they have a structured environment during the day. We have 2 more of her children. One is interested in WGU. She came to us as a non-graduate, and we're helping her get her GED and then work with our partner to get into Western Governors University. We have another one of her children that, quite frankly, we had him on track to get his GED as well. And with the TANF conversion, we lost him, quite frankly. He's kind of in the wind, and we can't work with him right now because of TANF regulations. He's 18. So we're still trying to track him down. That leaves a number of children in the home, which we're still overseeing. And I don't have specifics on the number of services, but certainly there's some mental health services. We've helped her access SSDI for her children who are adult children who are intellectually handicapped. So her household income has increased as well. And we're working with her to help her also access SSI and DI.
So she's employed?
She is not employed. She cannot get employed at this point in time. She's not able to be employed. So we're helping her with her other income sources to make sure she's stable.
Thank you.
You bet.
Commissioner, any other questions or comments?
I do have a comment. So last week, Alec was in town, and our new homeless czar, Wayne Niederhauser, he called and asked if I wanted to go down and make a presentation, a little bit about what the county was doing and our Center of Excellence, and it was interesting. He had an outfit from Washington County come. What's their name?
Switchpoint.
Switchpoint, right, and they're private. And many counties have just elected to privatize this whole thing and just go to a provider like Switchpoint. And the reason they do it is because Switchpoint doesn't demand any kind of a financial commitment from the county. But they struggle. Now, Switchpoint today is, they're at a break even and they operate. But then on the flip side of that, they had me present as a government organization. And so I did that, and then when we finished, he says, you know, he says, Weber County's system is the only one in the state that works. And he says it's the only one in the state where a government official, the commissioner, is actively involved. He says none of the others are that way, and every single one of them struggles. That kind of took me back. Melissa's told me that before. I don't want to say I didn't believe her, but you know, you kind of think, is that really true? But I was taken back when he actually said that in front of a group of 50 people. So we got a good thing going here, but it is hard. It's hard to keep this going. It's, we struggle with financing. We struggle with getting money. We met with Paul Ray for a minute yesterday, and I asked him right out. I said, so is the state giving up on intergenerational poverty? We done with funding from them? And he says, oh, no, we're still, we'll get you more this year. I said, well, more? We didn't get any the last 2 years. Well, we had some mix-ups, and I don't know. I shake my head a little bit at this whole thing, but he told us to watch it, and in the next month or two that they'd be getting to the point where they could accept some requests for funding. So I guess we're still going, huh?
Yes, sir.
Anyway, Melissa has done a marvelous job with the Center of Excellence and doing what she's doing, and I'm just way impressed with her.
She has done a wonderful job, but you've done a great job as a commissioner and a leader, and you've made a marked difference. That's my observation from inside, you know, from inside the
I do
room where
know.
it happens.
You know what you worry about, though, and this is the problem all across the state, not just here, and that is the minute somebody who has been involved leaves, can you replace them with somebody? You can replace them. I mean, I'm not irreplaceable. You know, that's not a problem. But will they have the same level of interest, and can they keep it going? And it's hard. You know, not everybody has an interest in housing and homelessness and social service issues and helping folks. It's just not speaking negatively in any way. They just don't have the interest. And it is hard to maintain these kind of programs when you can't find people that are interested a little bit in it. These are hard. Hard as you get. Anyway, so I really appreciate Melissa. She works really hard on my behalf. She keeps me up on everything. We don't always agree. We don't always agree. But anyway, she's great.
I feel the same way about Commissioner Jenkins. Thank you.
Great. Well, Commissioner Farrar, any comments regarding this?
Yeah, I need to make one or two.
Okay.
So, again, congratulations, Melissa. I concur with Commissioner Jenkins. You know, you guys put forth a great effort, and I understand it takes an interest, and it takes an understanding, and it's something that I couldn't do. It's when I talk to you and hear about your program, it's like talking a foreign language. So I appreciate Commissioner Jenkins' involvement with that, but I look at your success, and I always applaud success. So, great job, and you know, I understand it takes an interest and it takes an understanding to move the ball a little bit, and you guys have been able to do that. So, congratulations.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Well, both of
You
you,
know,
go ahead.
We've recently lost Danielle.
Right.
I told you the other day that's happened, and of course, the system that we're involved with, all the participants are actually, they're a little mortified by it, aren't they? That she's going to be going because she's done such a good job.
Yeah.
But the fact she's done such a good job, and you know, we celebrate her successes. I mean, we don't wish her ill, and we celebrate her successes. Hope that we were in some way part of that, and she's, you know, she's going to turn into a hotshot in the Salt Lake market, and with a law firm down there that she's going to go with. Anyway, so I'm really proud of her, and it's really exciting for her. But No question that she's going to be tough to replace. And is that job listing been posted?
Yes, and I've sent it out to the governing board and the local homeless
Okay, so
council
we're
as
looking
well.
right now. Of course, everybody's worried we'll take one of their people, right? I mean, there's a little bit of a domino effect here. Anyway,
Thank you. Well, with that discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd make the motion that we approve the interlocal agreement by and between Weber County, Weber Morgan Health Department, and Weber Human Services.
Very good. Have a motion?
Second.
Second, I'll place that motion for vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
You know,
Item,
just so you know, this is one of the most unique things that's happening in the country. This is, everybody looks at this agreement and what we're doing with it, and they just kind of scratch their heads, don't they? It's like, wow, this is actually working. But you know, without this agreement, this COVID issue we had, the health department, Melissa was able to jump in there and help them, and they needed big help then. They needed assets they couldn't find. And she was able to jump in there and do that. And Brian over there, he just really appreciated that. And then, well, anyway, it worked out really good. I don't need to get into a lot of
shouldn't
explanation.
governmental agencies be working together anyway if they're efficient?
Sure, if they're efficient.
We'll just leave it right there.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Contract approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next presentation, Commissioners, or our action item will be given by Lieutenant Courtney Ryan. It's a request for approval of a memorandum of understanding by and between Weber County and Ogden City to make a joint application for an Edward Bernie, did I say that right? Byrne or Bernie Memoriam Justice Assistant Grant, a JAG grant.
Yes, that's correct. This is a grant that Ogden City gets every year. They are the primary grantee for it. We're just kind of a sub-grantee that comes along with them. So Ogden City will oversee the grant and be the grant custodian for this grant. We're just looking to enter into this agreement with them. It's a total of just over $72,000 that the grant is. Weber County will receive $10,506 of that as a sub-grantee. $5,300 of that will go into a maintenance and upkeep of a Virtua 360-degree immersive scenario training platform, which is what we use for our law enforcement training for de-escalation and those type of things. And then $5,206 we're looking at putting into some technology-based policing stuff, such as cameras, that we're going to use. So that's about the gist of the grant, and it's something that we enter into with them each year for the past several years, and they do all the work, and we just kind of benefit from it. So it's a good deal.
Very good. Commissioner Frohr, this is in your portfolio. Any comments or questions?
No, this is a good grant, and Lieutenant Ryan's exactly right. This is a good partnership with Ogden City, and I've spoken with the sheriff about this grant over the last year, and it appears to me it's going to be put to great use in the county.
Yeah, that's correct.
Great. Any other comments? Then I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve the MOU by and between Weber County and Ogden City to make the joint application for the Edward Byrne Memoriam Justice Assistant Grant, as presented today by Lieutenant Courtney Ryan.
And I'd second that.
A motion and a second. I'll place that motion for vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Courtney.
Commissioner.
Appreciate it. Our public hearing today will take place, and I need a motion to adjourn our public meeting and convene a public hearing.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We're now in a public hearing. The first item is a public hearing to discuss amendments to the operating and capital budget of Weber County for the 2021 capital or calendar year. The best comptroller in the land, Scott Park.
Best comptroller in Weber County Corporation.
In the land is fine too.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioners. You have before you a budget change. This is our regular adjustments to for the second quarter to our 2021 operating and capital budgets. The list is kind of small this quarter, but we have one item that's really, really big on it. So the dollar-wise is pretty big, but the number of items are small. So the biggest thing that we have is the American Recovery Plan Act, the ARPA funds from the federal government. That's $25 million that they've given Weber County. We've actually received the cash up front. It's in the bank right now. And we have a couple of years till the end of 2024 to have a plan in place to spend all of that money, and then up to through 2026 to execute that plan. So we're taking this slow. We're working on the plan to make sure that we know what we're doing with the money and can, invest it long term in the community. But what we need to do is authorize the receipt and the expending of that ARPA fund. So that's the biggest item on this list. We have a couple of other items on this list. We received $179,000 for election equipment from the state of Utah, so we're requesting permission to spend that. We also wanted to put $50,000 to fix the Golden Spike internet connections out there, to put fiber out to the Golden Spike. We were able to take advantage of some money we had in our paramedics account and pay for a heavy rescue vehicle. We were able to pay cash for it, and we were able to save about $70,000 of interest over the time if we had financed that. So you'll see that on there as a request to spend $578,000 for that vehicle. And then we had $140,000 that we've spent out of our fund balance to finish some repairs on Bybee Drive. So those are the big items on that list. If you have any questions, I'm happy to discuss them.
Boy, seems like a very well-rounded, entire county-focused achievement. Commissioners Jenkins, Frohr, any comments to Mr. Park's presentation?
I have questions. So what does that amount that you just talked about total?
So the total expenditure is $26.29 million. Total revenue is $25.49 million. So all but several hundred thousand. There's like 600,000 that's not covered, but that came out of our fund balance for the paramedic vehicle.
Yeah, so the point being, if for somebody listening to this broadcast today, we didn't really spend this money. We're just setting it aside to spend.
You're authorizing the money to be spent. We haven't
Right.
actually committed it to a specific project, but the first step before we can commit it to a project is authorize it in a budget to be spent, and that's what we're doing now.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure they understood that, because I don't want all of a sudden a panic to happen saying, hey, you guys said we was going to have a chance to put in requests on this, and now you just spent it. So we haven't, and that day will come yet ahead where we will authorize, or we're authorizing now, where we will accept applications for this, right?
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that the people listening didn't just croak and say, oh, we just missed it, and they told us that we'd get a
No.
chance. Okay.
No, that's good. Thank you for making that
bet.
clarification. That'll help, and we'll be able to point people to this in the future, too.
Yep.
Great. Commissioner Frohr, any questions?
Just a little clarification. So, as Mr. Park has stated, the $25 million from the ARPA funds is now in the bank, and Commissioner Jenkins was exactly right. We're not spending it. We're not sending checks for any of that $25 million. We have a great staff in place that's looking at our priorities under what's allowed by federal mandate, under the Treasury Act, that we'll be compiling over the next probably 2 or 3 months, in which time we'll look at priorities. But I wanted to point out that we're expecting another $25 million for a total of $50 million sometime between now, probably sometime early next spring again.
So it can come 1 year after we requested the first payment, which was in June. So we could request it in June of 2022.
So we're actually looking at a total of about $50 million for whatever priority projects that we decide to move forward. And we're also actively working with the state because they received $1.5 billion that they intend to use a good share of that for also priority projects. So we'll be working with the state as well on our priorities, hopefully taking advantage of some of that, the state ARPA funds as well. And again, the point with the ARPA funds, if I could just kind of tell you what the group has talked about and what's been pointed out under the Treasury Act. This is for long-term projects, infrastructure projects that are looked to benefit our kids and grandkids down the road that typically wouldn't happen or be able to be paid for otherwise. So that's kind of our focus as driven by the Treasury Act and what the mandate is under the Treasury Act.
Really exciting to be a part of this. It's really good. If there's no other questions for Mr. Park, we'll move on to item 3, which is the public comment portion of this budget amendment. Are there any online, Christie? Any in the audience that would like to comment on this? And commissioners will take a motion. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn our public hearing and reconvene a public meeting.
Motion to adjourn our public hearing and reconvene as a public meeting, Mr. Chairman.
I
Second?
have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 5 on our H, so it'd be H5, our public hearing, is an action on the public hearing. And so we've had the request for approval of a resolution amending the operating and capital budget of Weber County for the 2021 county year. We've heard that presentation, had a chance for comments. Are there any other comments? Or if not, I'll entertain a motion to move forward.
I'd make that motion to move forward as accept the presentations that we've seen today and go ahead and act on them and approve them.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. I'll place that motion for vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Item number I, Indy, are a chance for commissioner comments. You know, I'm kind of expecting a couple comments here today, but maybe not.
I had opportunity to give my comments earlier, so I'm fine, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Let it go.
Chairman Harvey,
Yes.
I mean, is that a resolution that we need to approve?
Oh, that was a resolution.
Just a moment.
Resolution 29.
It is a resolution, and commissioners, let's go back to item H5 or H2 under number 5. So it's a request for a resolution, and I misspoke. Mr. Brandt, would you do a roll call on that, please?
Yes, roll call vote for Resolution 29-2021. Commissioner Farrar?
Aye.
Commissioner Jenkins?
Aye.
Chairman Harvey?
Aye. Thank you very much. And with no commissioner comments, now I'll entertain a motion for item J. Juliet.
Motion to adjourn.
We're adjourned.